I decided to do more testing with HAP40. In the past tests, the steels that I tested HAP40 against was Super Blue and M4. Now, with those steels, the three of them, there's similarities between the steels. Looking at the composition, your main contributors to edge retention are carbon, tungsten, and vanadium. And all three blades are at a high hardness, varying hardnesses, but still they're all at a high hardness. What came to mind, it popped into my mind before this, but then discussions happened on the groups, the knife groups on Facebook and Spyderco, and I think in Knife Obsession as well, was comparing it to ZDP-189, and it really caught my curiosity because ZDP-189 doesn't doesn't function from the same uh, elements in the composition. ZDP-189 is mostly carbon and chromium at a very high hardness, taking up very high 60s, mid to high 60s. So it where it gets its edge retention from is it's different. It's not, you're not talking about vanadium, you're not talking about tungsten. So I wasn't sure in thinking about it beforehand how it would go, how the test would turn out. What I did know was that HAP40 was in that, it was in the neighborhood of ZDP-189. I mean, it's up around M4. It's close. So, and I've seen ZDP-189 act funny in tests. I mean, in different tests, I've seen varying results from testers uh, based upon edge finish and that kind of thing with ZDP-189. I really like ZDP-189. It's one of my favorite steels as a user steel. Um, I really think it's great. I like the way that it wears, holds an edge for a really long time. Um, so that, and I had an Endura, so same knife, same geometry, same everything except for the steel on the edge. So I was just too curious not to do the test. So for this test, for sharpening the knives, I was having trouble with my stones, with the Sharpmaker stones. My diamond stones have gotten smooth in this middle section to the point where it was giving me trouble apexing the knives. I've used these stones for a lot of different steels, a lot of different sharpening. Everything from 8CR13 MOV up through 10V, multiple times on just about everything in between, just about. So these need to be replaced, these coarse diamond, and I'm going to. I don't know. I'm going to need a little bit to get to it, and I haven't decided yet if I'm going to go with the cubic boron nitride rods or get the coarse diamond again. It's a great sharpening tool. It really is. And in fact, all my stones need to be replaced. The medium rod that I use is having trouble. Just all of them. I'm just going to replace the entire set. And just start over fresh. But for this test, the coarse diamond wouldn't work. So what I used was a DMT coarse diamond plate. After the plate, I moved on to the rods, from going from medium to fine to ultra fine, and then the strops. And I just, after the coarse diamond plate, I followed the same progression that I had in past tests with the strops. 3 to 5 micron on basswood, 1 micron on basswood, quarter micron on leather, and 1/10 of a micron on leather. I brought both knives to a very high sharpness for the test. I taped off part of the blade. For the first, I did 2 runs. For the first run, I used this lower part of the blade. For the second run, I used the middle part of the blade. The test was push cutting cardboard. The stopping point was where the knife would no longer shave hair. In the first test, I got an 11% difference between the two steels, with ZDP-189 having higher edge retention. In the second test, I got a 15% difference between the two steels, again with ZDP-189 having a higher edge retention. So that answers it. And that's fine. The 11 to 15% difference, you know, that range that's fine. I don't think that's too surprising of a range there. Um, so yeah, the test was good. Um, I had to resharpen the knives after the test, and I went to do it, and the Sharpmaker stones were giving me so much trouble that after I used the coarse diamond plate again, and after that I tried to move on to the medium rods, and I was having trouble getting the knives to apex the way that I like them to. So I decided to jump to Mr. 3000 grit cheap stone from overseas that I mentioned in the video on 4V that I used. And you know, all the information I've got on this is ruby red sharpening stone 3000 grit. I used oil on it, and it apexed the knives just fine. Didn't take long. I figured since I was doing stuff different, you know, after that I figured since I was doing stuff different, I may as well keep it up. So instead of going on to the back to the Sharpmaker stones, I moved to this. This is a 10,000 grit oil stone over a 3,000 grit. I'm guessing these are the same. They're very similar. I believe this is sold as 3,000 grit. This red. This is supposed to be 10,000. So I moved on to that, and I got done that, and then I moved on to strops. And for sharpening the knives, at that point, I only took HAP40 to 1 micron on basswood, because at that point it was cutting free hanging hairs. I didn't need to take it farther on strops. ZDP-189, you're not going to get that. You're not going to. At least I haven't gotten it to catch and cut a hair after 1 micron. I have to take it farther than that. A quarter micron, it'll start to catch on the hair, but 1/10 of a micron, that's when it goes. That's when it'll cut or split a free hanging hair. So yeah, that was the test. A lot of people had questioned it too. I had a lot of discussions on the groups about it, both on Spyderco, the Spyderco group, and Knife Obsession, about HAP40 versus ZDP-189. So that's the answer. ZDP-189 comes out on top. Fair to say a 10 to 15% advantage? Sure. A lot of things could cause that to vary. Like I mentioned, the edge finish on ZDP-189 seems to make a bigger difference than it does on other steels. At least that's what I've seen in test results from stuff that other testers have done. And of course, angle, you know, the angle or even how you use the knife. ZDP-189 has a pretty low toughness. People talk about it being chippy. I've never seen it chip, and I use it at 30 inclusive, and I've used it extensively at 30 inclusive, both in testing and just in general carry. I've never had a problem with it chipping. I've never had an issue. The edge gets aggressive as it wears, as it breaks down, but I like that. I look for that. I mean, there's some steels that just seem to get blunt. S110V just seems to get blunt as it wears down. Some steels seem to get choppy along the edge. M4 seems to get choppy along the edge. I like that. I like the way that feels. ZDP-189 gets choppy along the edge. Not as much as M4, but it does, and I like that. I like it when a steel does that. It keeps that aggressive cutting going longer. That slicing that you can use. So yeah, glad that Spyderco has both these knives out for me to run this test in Enduras. It was a good test.